What's up, guys? As we saw this past week with a 152 to 150 game between the Hawks and Bulls, defense in the NBA, particularly in the regular season, has fallen off a cliff. It has made the All-Star game unwatchable and has even got me turning more to college basketball where defense is played much harder. Every time I discuss top players like LeBron, Trae Young, and LaMelo making little effort on defense or just not knowing how to play it to an NBA standard, I always get the same blowback. Oh, they're in the NBA. You're in your mother's basement with Cheeto crumbs on your shirt. So are these people who are defending their idols right in that what we are watching is actually just a ridiculous onslaught of modern NBA skill and we have no idea what we're talking about? Or are we being gaslit and defense during the regular season has actually fallen off a cliff and made parts of the NBA unwatchable? I watched a clip recently from one of my favorite NBA personalities, a man who always played hard, played defense, and wore his heart and passion on his sleeve, Joakim Noah. This clip was extremely eye-opening to me as Joakim and JJ Redick both told stories from their playing career, and it gave a great window into why defense has suffered. JJ first asked Joakim about the time his own teammates voted to suspend him for a game after the team already suspended him for getting into it with an assistant coach as a rookie on the Chicago Bulls. He talks about how Ben Wallace was the leader of the team and Ben essentially ran the culture and convinced the coaches to suspend him a second game. They informed Noah about it in front of the whole team at practice. Noah was of course pissed, but eventually had to accept it, and of course it got out to the news. The next night, they played Orlando and got blown out by almost 50. He walked in the locker room and was shocked to see the team laughing and joking like nothing had happened after the loss.
Ben Wallace in the huddle goes, as players, we feel like one game wasn't enough. So you're not playing tonight again. And I'm looking at my teammates. I'm like looking around like, I could tell like some of these guys didn't even know. So we play Orlando, we get smoked by 50. And I remember, guys were like clowning around in the locker room, like laughing. And I just like stood up to Body and I was like, yo, Body, this is bullshit. This is bullshit. I was like, I'm the one getting suspended and you guys are over here fucking around and laughing and shit. And we just got smoked by 50. It was bad, so we had to get like broken up.
This story is a microcosm of what's going on with defense. This is the first issue. Each team, starting from the owner on down, like everyone else in society, has become obsessed with the bottom line. The shareholders have all sorts of agendas if they're not in Los Angeles, Boston, or one of the other established elite teams. They're trying to get a new stadium, or move the team, or tank for a draft pick, or figure out if they want to hand out $400 million max contracts to players who are elite but show no winning intangibles. The coaches know they'll get fired if they don't appease the star. The assistants know they'll be fired if they don't be yes men to the coach. Talking heads on ESPN don't watch the games, they just pour over the stat book and Twitter for 10 minutes before coming on the air, reinforcing narratives to fans and in players' heads that if you dropped 25, you had a good game, regardless if you lost by 30. The narratives are so strong around every team, it's almost impossible for players and coaches to block it out and just focus on being competitive as hell, playing hard, and winning. And this isn't even going into the flack that the players put up with from fans about losing their stupid parlays. In the 90s, players who had big stats but were on perennially losing teams were given much less media attention. If Wilt and Bill Russell were putting up the same stats and winning resumes that they had back then today, the media would have been pumping up Wilt over Russell. But back in those days, everyone had Russell over Wilt because he was the consummate winner. But now we rank players like Trae Young and LaMelo Ball over guys like Drew Holiday, who in his prime impacted winning far more than either of those players. The next generation is looking at that and thinking, why should I focus on being a defensive player and a winner, when comparing the notoriety Trae and LaMelo get compared to Drew? The second thing that was eye-opening in this clip was the story from JJ Redick. He talked about how he had a similar run-in with an assistant coach on the Clippers discussing defensive strategy. JJ defended a screen a certain way, it didn't work, obviously the coach felt that he would be blamed, so at the half he told JJ to defend it a different way, which also didn't work. Then in the film session after the game, he called JJ out for not doing it to the standard that the coach wanted, and they got into it.
And I've got to fight through that. And if early in the game, KCP hit like 2 pull-up jumpers because DJ's in drop coverage, right? And I'm like, I'm doing my job. I'm forcing a contested rear view contest too. So all of a sudden in the second half, Brendan O'Connor, our defensive guy that year, is like, I want you to chase over Tobias. I want you to chase over Andre Drummond. And then as soon as KCP starts going downhill, I want you to veer back. This is after he has the ball. Veer back to Tobias. All right. Tell me to do that, I'll do it. So now all of a sudden, I've got a 25-foot closeout to Tobias, right? So he, I think, drove by me one time. I think he got an open look. I don't know if he made a three. They do it a couple times. And next day in film, Brendan's like, hey, let's go over this play, right? And I'm just like, I don't understand this coverage. Like, I understand what a veer back is. What you're asking me to do is not a veer back. You're asking me to guard a guy up until basically the top of the key. And then once he passes, go and run and close out on another guy. Tobias Harris is a fucking good player. So we kind of start chatting. Voices are raised. And he says to me, do your fucking job, right? Do your fucking job.
Every time you hear JJ talk in an interview or podcast, he's always talking about actions and trying to sound intelligent with strategical terminology. Every successful business person will tell you, micromanaging only works so well. You give people all the information you can, and then it's up to them to go out and read the game. Film study? Good. Starting a game with defensive strategy? Good. Discussing it and making adjustments at halftime? Very good. But micromanaging how each defensive possession should be played and turning the players into robots? That will never work long term. This is why micromanaging perfectionists like JJ Redick will always eventually lose in the playoffs to coaches like Phil Jackson that teach concepts and focus on player psychology. To build a championship level defense, players have to understand defensive concepts. In the NBA, you have to learn your opponent top to bottom, learn every tendency throughout the game, bait them, get in their head, build defensive connectivity with your teammates on help. Simply put, there's too many damn robots out there defensively. You can see them all overthinking about what the coach just lectured them on, and unless they're a max player, they often get yanked after one mistake. Kobe Bryant, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, and Michael Jordan were all great at this. They all had a ridiculous memory when it comes to studying and remembering each player's go-to moves, tendencies in big moments, and habits they formed. They learned to think this way from Phil Jackson. Don't memorize a script, go out and read the game and make adjustments as a player in the game. We've talked about the main issue with the X's and O's with defense in the league right now. But what about the most glaring issue that everyone sees? Effort. Without a doubt, the biggest two issues with defense in the NBA are when teams get into driving kick situation and transition defense. In driving kick situations where the initial kick creates an open shot, most NBA players are quick enough and long enough to sprint and do a flyby closeout. If they do that, yes, it prevents the first three, but it usually leads to a pump fake and drive or starts a swing around the perimeter. This leads to endless sprinting closeouts and rotations where you're essentially in a race to beat the shot clock. You're hoping that the shot clock will run out before you get too exhausted to sprint anymore. With how good everyone has become at shooting threes, I'll give NBA players a bit of a pass on this, but too many games we see almost no effort to even close out the first three attempt. At least go on a rotation or two and make the better shooter give it up to a worse shooter. The second issue is of course transition defense. As we've discussed several times in this channel, the easiest bad transition defense to point out is players like LeBron and James Harden just not even getting back at all in transition. But the other, more overlooked issue is strategy and fake effort in transition defense. As I discussed in my recent video about LeBron's basketball IQ, playing in the gaps as a defender to help and recover to your man is a simple but crucial skill in the NBA. Many times in transition, primarily on the secondary break, where almost everyone on the court is across half court but the ball handler is still sprinting up the court, players are often fake hustling, just jogging back and not sprinting back to set themselves up in the driving gaps to help and recover. When you give literally any NBA player with any sort of decent handles a full head of steam from half court against even the best defender in the world, they will score those 9 times out of 10. These are the points that we see primarily given up in these 152 to 150 score games. The crazy part is often they are on made baskets. You'll see the ball go through the net, They quickly throw it into their fastest player, they sprint up the court knowing they will probably catch 1 or 2 players jogging back and not in their help lanes. The Indiana Pacers last year ran this with Tyrese Halliburton with such success that they made it to the NBA Finals before he tragically tore his Achilles in Game 7. And last thing, I know a lot of you out there really want to bring back hand checking. Personally, yes, hand checking could help increase the intensity and competitiveness on the court, essentially putting the balance of power more towards strong brick walls like Lou Dort and taking it away from guys like Steph Curry and Trae Young, who early in their careers quite honestly might have been mere role players if 90s hand checking was allowed. It could help to bring it back, but honestly to me, transition defensive effort and lack of conceptual understanding from young players who have been turned into mere robots is more the issue to me than lack of hand checking. But if you're an advocate to bring that back, I have no issue with it. Go for it. So what can we do about it, guys? This is a channel of solutions. I made this channel to strive to make things better and make people think about what they're watching. Well, first off, send clips to your friends of great defense over plays like dunks and crossovers. Don't form your opinions of who's elite based on only offensive stats. Go watch the games and root for players that are playing with effort and winning intangibles. When you see a player that actually goes up to contest a breakaway dunk and gets absolutely posterized, don't do the stupid tap your head celebration. Give respect to the defender for having the guts to go up in the name of competitiveness. And most importantly, when training with your own kids, or if you're ever blessed enough to coach, teach the kids concepts and help them actually understand the psychology of defending. Don't just form up robots. Also, don't fall into that temptation if you're coaching young players to play 2-3 zone the whole game just because the other team can't shoot. Sure, kids should know how to play zone, but they will be lost like I was as a kid when you start playing against good players where man is by far the best defense and requires actual basketball IQ. So, the old adage stated in every sport, does defense still win championships? The main identity and passion of the reigning champion and best team in the league right now is still defense. So yes, there's still hope for defense. But if we don't continue to speak up and pass it on to the next generation, we will continue to have more 152 to 150 games and more games like this. NBA players, if you're watching, there's still some of us out there that love good defense and we salute you. Thank you guys so much for watching. I put a lot of work into these videos. If you'd be willing to support by joining as a member, you can help choosing future topics. Or if you're not able to, just liking, commenting, hyping, and sharing the video with others really helps this channel grow so I can afford to put even more time into it. Thanks again, guys. Y'all are all legends. Much love and Merry Christmas. Peace.